Hi, welcome back to another Excel VBA video here. In the last video, what we looked at was how we used an input box to fill in some data that the user gave us. But that would only let us fill in one parameter. In other words, it would ask for one item of data, and we searched down to see our whole list of data, chose the cell below there, and put in just that one item of data. That's not so useful as being able to select several items of data, and if we want to do that, rather than having an input box or an input message, we're actually going to use a user form. And again, we want the VBA to find all of the existing data, even if in column A it doesn't go right the way down to the bottom. Now you'll see a lot of other videos on YouTube where what they say is go down here, go right the way down to the very last cell in the worksheet and do Control up or Excel up and then choose the one below. Now you'll notice that in this instance that one's not going to work, so that's not a reliable method. What we want to do is we want to use our Control asterisk to select the current range, and you'll remember that in our VBA we already have that last row piece of code written, which selects the current region, rows count, and then adds one onto it and goes into column A to select that particular cell. So we're going to copy that piece of code, and what we want to do here is on this file we need to add in a user form. Now our user form that pops up, you'll notice at the moment is called user form 1, and it's also labeled user form 1. Now that's not what we want. What we want to do is change the label or the caption straight away. So this is going to say user input. Now as soon as we type that in there, you'll notice it's changed up here. And in this form, when I click in here, you'll notice I get my toolbox appearing. When I click away, the toolbox disappears. When I click back in here, it appears again. What I want is a label. I'm just going to click, and the label here, again, I can come down here to change the caption of that label. Okay. Or what I could do is click on it in the actual form itself. What I'm now going to do is choose a text box and place the text box in there, and you notice it's called text box 1. That's fine. I'm now going to select both of these things by using the shift, and now by holding down Control I can click and drag, and I can make duplicates. Now you'll notice here I've got 2 rows of dots, and here I've got 3, so that tells me that I've actually come down or snapped down one too far, so now I have 2 and 2. Nicely lined up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose all 3 of these, and I'm simply going to come down here, and in the properties I want to align the text to the right. And you notice how if I've got multiple selected, it does them all at the same time. Now clearly this one here I don't want it to be called name, I want this one to be email, and the bottom one I want this to be phone. Okay, so name, email, phone. Underneath here I need a command button, and the command button, again, I'm just changing that to submit, and I could have changed it down here in the caption, but it's sometimes easier to do it up here. I'm going to resize that box, and I'm going to run the code. This is the box, comes up asking for user input, name, email, phone. When I click submit, it does absolutely nothing, because what we need to do is we need to code something onto that submit button so that when the user does click it, it picks up the data from there, and from there, and it puts it into the next empty row of my database. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paste in those 2 lines of code from before. In other words, we're going to find where my data is, and I'm going to select A in the row below my data. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to pick up the values from each of those text boxes, and they're just called text box 1, text box 2, text box 3, and whatever value is in there, I'm going to put it into my selection, which is my selected cell, which will be this one. And for that one, I'm going to offset by nothing. That one, I'm going to offset 1 column to the right. That one, I'm going to offset 2 columns to the right. But I'm not going to select each time. I'm simply going to go from that selected cell, and my offset is going to put the data into these other cells, but without actually selecting them. So back here, with my selection, what I want to do is, so active cell, offset, and how much do I want to offset by? Well, the first one I want to offset by nothing, and dot value, and that equals, and I'm going to say me, which is the form I'm in, and I'm going to say text box 1 dot value. And now what I can do is simply copy that, paste it in a couple of times, and then change these. So that is 1, and that is 2, and this is 2, and this is 3. So that will actually do it. So if I now go back to my user form, yep, and I'm going to run the user form. So now in here, now when I click submit, it actually picks up the data from each of these cells and enters it in the relevant column or the relevant data space. If I click submit again, what it's actually going to do is resubmit the data from the form, but first of all it's going to find the next available empty cell and fill it into those cells. And actually I don't want that, so what I'm going to do is, before it actually gets to that stage, what I'm going to do is tell it to stop. In other words, I'm going to tell it to hide the user form. And easy way of doing that is I'll simply come in here and I'll say me.hide. And I need to actually say me.hide, not me. And that's now recognized as a command. So if I run that again, it comes up with the data. Click submit, and instantly the form is hidden. It does put the data in there, but straight away afterwards it hides the form. Now that's fine if you have 3 text boxes, but if you have 10 or 20, it becomes a bit of a pain. So what I'm doing is I'm just remarking out those lines there, and what I'm going to do is, instead of those, I'm actually going to run a loop. So my loop is x equals 1 to 3. Now that's a really simple loop. And next x. Now what I want to do for my loop is, I actually want to take that line of code there, but I want to do it slightly differently. So I'm going to say active cell, offset. Now the offset this time is going to be 0, comma. Now I could make it x, but that makes it 1 the first time it runs through the loop. So I actually want it to be x minus 1. Yeah. So it's x minus 1, which makes it 0, and dot value. And I want this to be equal to me. And here's where we have to be slightly careful, because we have to look down here, and it's me dot controls. Now this is one that catches people out, because it's controls means I can now do some magic in here and say it is, the control is called Textbox and X. So that will actually merge together Textbox and X. So in this first instance it'll be Textbox 1, which is that one up there, close brackets. Now because I've put that in brackets, that's why I can have the concatenation within there, and it's a control which is called that. If I just referred to it as Textbox and X, it wouldn't work. So I do need to have that controls bit there, but purely because the controls bit means I need the brackets which go around anything that's concatenated. Dot value, next X, down to me hide. That will now work, and if I run that one down, if I click submit, that actually cycles through 3 times, and it's actually a much cleaner code than having all of that there. Particularly, like I say, if you end up with 10 or 20 different commands, different text boxes within your form, it is important that you haven't renamed these and that they are in the order in which you want them to appear in the certain columns. What I normally do when I'm actually building one of these is I'll empty this completely and I'll make sure that I'm in the first cell there, and then what I'll do is I will fill in the form, and in my form what I will do is I will type in name, email and phone, click submit, and now what you notice is that those there have gone in and they become my headers. So I can then delete all of that data. They've become my headers, however many I had going along the top, and now when I run the user form again, and this time click submit, it now puts the data in there underneath the headers, and I just know that the headers are in the right place. Real easy way of testing it. Okay, I hope you found that useful. It's an introduction to user forms and also an introduction to loops. Now these are specifically defined loops. There are a whole load of other loops that you can get, so you can have 4 next loops or 4 until loops. However, I hope you found that useful. And don't forget, if you do have any questions on anything VBA, pop a question down below and I'll try and answer. And thank you for listening.